Former President Donald Trump blasting President Joe Biden as the most corrupt president in U.S. history just hours after he was arraigned in a Miami federal courtroom on Tuesday. Former commander-in-chief pleading not guilty to 37 charges related to the handling of classified documents and making false statements to the FBI and a grand jury. We're joined now by trial attorney and host of the Barack Lurie Show, Brock Lurie, as well as strategic brand crisis strategist and attorney Rich Nichols, and my special guest for the day, the founder of the Lawfare Project, Gerard Filitti. All right, he's going to be with us throughout the show. Barack, how do you assess the strengths and the weaknesses? You're a working lawyer. How do you assess the strengths and weaknesses of the Trump case with the evidence that we have and we've seen so far that's in the indictment, assuming that evidence actually is able to get admitted?
It's a very limited one, is the fact that they do have him sort of dead to rights in the fact that he had the classified documents and that he didn't return these classified documents. That's where it stops. As far as the weaknesses of the case is concerned, the fact that he had them is really of little import or significance. He could have easily declassified them. So it's all a matter of form over substance when the prosecution looks at this and the defense looks at it. And the jury will not like the fact that this is treated as such, and they will not want to engage in quibbles like this. So they don't want to do it. There was no damage. There was no exchange for the Chinese, for example, giving the information to them. Nothing of this sort whatsoever. And I think at the end of the day, what's going to happen is that this is really going to bite the Biden administration back.
Politically.
They've bitten off more than they can chew.
Rich, looking at the indictment, the bulk of the charges the president is facing involve the willful retention of classified information, but also making false statements. But on those first 31 counts, the prosecution there, Department of Justice, don't they have a pretty high burden of proof, as Barack was mentioning, because they have to demonstrate that he didn't declassify the documents in the first place?
Well, the burden of proof in criminal cases is always the higher standard. You have to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt. And it just takes one juror to convince that there is reasonable doubt to get an acquittal. Yeah. So in any prosecution, the prosecutors have a tough road to climb, and he'll climb. I think in this case, Trump's defense is going to pursue two things. One, a motion to dismiss based upon trying to get rid of the attorney-client privilege ability for the government to use Trump's attorney's notes to basically be the content and the substance of most of those charges. That's right. Two, that tape that we keep hearing about no one has heard or seen, they're going to try to get both of those pieces of evidence suppressed and kept out of evidence. And if they succeed just on one of those, they could win this case.
Barack, real quick, we're now into motion practice, as Rich mentions. What do you expect those the first motion to be? What would you expect them to lead with?
Well, I agree, first of all, on the attorney-client privilege issue. I think that's just, it's sacrosanct, and it's very bizarre that they allowed that in the first place. And the second part of it is the Espionage Act. I just don't see it. I don't see how they can relate the retention of these classified documents to the Espionage Act. And it's such a loose thing that, as a matter of law, I think they'll file a motion to dismiss to get rid of it, and they may very well succeed. That's what I would say.
Gerard, I want to move on to President Biden's legal woes. President Biden's family implicated in a potential bribery scheme involving a Ukrainian energy executive. We're now learning from Senator Chuck Grassley that there may be audio recordings that back up these allegations. Watch.
The foreign national who allegedly bribed Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly has audio recordings of his conversation with them. 17 such recordings. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case that he got into a tight spot.
Now, Gerard, if these audio recordings, and I say if they are obtained by the Senate and they confirm the allegations made that the FBI informant had made in the document, what could the legal path be for accountability here? Because a lot of Americans are already looking at this and saying it looks like there was a crime that could have been committed here.
Well, the main legal path is the most doubtful one, and that's the Justice Department opening an inquiry, having a special counsel appointed, just as they did with President Trump. The issue here, the problem is self-evident, that the Justice Department has not shown willingness to get involved in any of the questionable activities of the Biden family, just whatever Trump is accused of doing. So we don't really have a good mechanism here. We hopefully will have enough pressure on the Justice Department from Congress that it will make them look really bad if they don't do something. It'll make them look partisan, political, and diminish the significant role and achievements that the DOJ has been involved with over the years.
Rich, last question to you. The questions surrounding all of this, and what Gerard's talking about is, well, how do you get accountability when you have a Biden Justice Department? What does that look like? Is there another legal path? If you have a mountain of evidence, Rich, could a state court, a state attorney general, is there another way to try to advance a prosecution? Because like Gerard said, you got this Biden DOJ, they may sit on this as they have for the last number of years and not advance any kind of a prosecution or additional investigation.
Well, I think this whole argument is a bit disingenuous, and this issue has already been litigated, was already investigated a couple of years ago, both of those charges. So there's no need for the Justice Department to revisit something that's already been looked at and dismissed as not being substantiated.
But you do have a mountain of evidence that's now coming out into the public. You have tax returns. You've got more information about shell corporations. You could have these recordings. And up until just a few weeks ago, we had no idea that there was a paid FBI informant that was planted to try to get information about an alleged pay-to-play scheme. So you don't see that there's any there worth pursuing.
All of these allegations were brought to the fore a couple of years ago. They were investigated by the Department of Justice and found to not be substantiated, and they couldn't be corroborated. So to bring this up now is purely political. It's just a way to get out into the media and try to create some doubt in the minds of the public about Biden's integrity.
Well,
Bottom line is, those issues were looked into and dismissed as not corroborated.
All right. Well, I am unfortunately out of time. I'd love to give my other two guests an opportunity to respond to that, but I cannot. Gentlemen, Barack Lurie, Rich Nichols, Gerard Filitti, thank you so much, gentlemen. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Tom.
Up next, another new entry into the 2024 GOP presidential primary. He's going to be with us. And before we